Hey friends, welcome back to the shop here on Mark Kelly Farm. We got a project we got to get done today because I got to deliver it this afternoon here in about 2 hours. So come along, we'll show you what we're going to build. Well, it's a woodworking project, but it's not this one yet. This is our bee boxes and frames that we got the other day, which I thought were going to come assembled, but apparently some assembly is required. So we'll assemble those over the next couple days because we got to go get the bees transferred out of the old box and into these new boxes. So today what we're going to do is my cousin, a few years back, I made them a kettle corn pot cooker because they have a pumpkin patch that they open every fall called the Bumpkin Patch. And it's between Myrna, Nebraska and Anselmo, Nebraska to the east. So if you're ever in the area in the fall, you want to stop by that place. It's really neat. They got lots of activities for the kids. You can go out and pick your own pumpkins. They got hay rides. It's pretty cool. But I never got them a paddle made for that cooker, and they haven't used it yet, but they want to use it this year. So we need to make them a paddle for that kettle corn cooker. So I stopped by the lumber yard today. The paddle needs to be probably 5 feet long because there's a lot of hot oil and stuff that spatters out of that pot. So I stopped at the lumber yard and got a piece of 1x4 hardwood. This is oak. And anybody that does woodwork knows it's not actually 1x4, it's 3/4 by 3.5 is your standard 1x4. And the reason we got hardwood is because it needs to be durable. The grain needs to be really tight so it doesn't break, so that's why we got it. So our first operation here we're going to do on the table saw, we want a wide paddle on one end, the full 3.5 inches wide, but then we're going to taper down the middle to where it's just a handle. So what I'm going to do, I think we're going to go 1.5 inches wide on the handle. So that means we got to cut 1 inch off of either side of this most of the way down the board. So I will set our rip fence right here to where we got 1 inch from here to the other side of the blade. That way we cut a full 1 inch off and we don't have to allow for the blade thickness. So I'm going to get that set up. And then I'm going to mark my board how far down I need to run it into the saw because we're not going to run it all the way through. We're going to go to a certain point and stop so we can leave it wide on the end. All right, before we get started, I bought one of these wireless lapel microphones. In fact, they come in packs of 2. That way I can move around and be further away from the camera and you guys still have some decent audio. So we're going to need to lower our blade down first, because we want the blade, anytime you're cutting on a table saw, to be just barely clearing the top of the wood. That way there's not so much blade up here to get you in trouble. And then we're going to take our tape measure, and like I said, we're going to measure to the outside of the blade. We are pretty much spot on right there. So because this is a curved blade and it doesn't cut straight up and down, when we cut this wood, it's going to be further along on the bottom, the cut will, than it will be on the top. And it looks like it's going to be, let's see, 3/4 of an inch there. It's going to be about 1.5 inches difference between top and bottom. So we want to figure out how big of a paddle we want here. So say I want 8 inches for a paddle. We want to be marked at 9.5 inches on both sides because we're going to be cutting both sides. So we want to stop at the same measurement on both sides. So we'll square this line all the way across on both sides. just like that. Now that will be our stop line as we're going through the table saw. We're going to stop when the top of the blade hits this line on both sides. So let's get that done. Now you can see right here where the other cut is past the line, because remember we allowed for that 1.5 inches. And on the back side, this cut comes down to here as well. So we'll lift this straight off of here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my bandsaw, and because the bandsaw cuts straight up and down, I'm going to come in on these lines and just take these two outer pieces off so they're not in my way. And then we're going to mark a radius here and cut that on the bandsaw to make a little curved corner here. And we're also going to mark here on the end, because the bowl that they're cooking the kettle corn in is got a rounded bottom. We're going to put just a slight, very slight radius on the bottom of this paddle. So yes, I probably could have cut all of this on the bandsaw, but you get a nice straighter cut when you do it on the table saw, and you can use this rip fence. If I was do it on the bandsaw, you'd get subtle little waves in there. So this is the only area that's going to get cut with the bandsaw. Alright, so when we're making our line, let's get our rip fence out of the way. I want to come down to the bottom where we stopped with the other saw, and that's the line that we're going to go to when we make our radius. So now we'll take like a paint can, like this, and we'll put that right on that line. I should probably make another line over here. That way we know where to stop. So let's put an arrow, let's say 7 inches over here, and we'll do the same on the other side. So we put our can right here and we connect those 2 points just like that. So now we know where that's going to get cut off at. So now, where this transition is, I'll get my little 4.5 inch sander with the flapper wheel on it, and we'll smooth these transitions out really well, and then we'll mark our radius on the end here. Now this big wash tub over here on the wall is about the same diameter of our kettle corn cooking pot. So I'm just going to put it on this wash tub here, corner to corner, and then we'll mark that radius Just like that. Not very much to cut off, as you can see, but that's all we need right there. So let's get over on the bandsaw and we'll cut that off. So we got the wrong bit in our router, so we got to change that out. Now a router is the first thing I bought back when I was in wood shop in high school, because it was really good for doing hobby type stuff that I was doing, and I really enjoyed using it. But we're going to have to go get a pair of pliers to pull that out. So like I was saying, in high school, we used to make a lot of wooden signs. Were really cool. We did like a square piece of wood and we'd draw a design on it or a sign. Like the big thing back then was Copenhagen, because we were all chewing like little dummies. And we would make Copenhagen signs, and we'd use the router and a straight bit to route out that sign, and then we'd go around the edges and we would burn it and sand it. It would look really cool. So that's why I bought one of these, because we were doing a lot of that. It wasn't this router, it was a different one. But if you're a hobbyist, this is probably one of the first power tools you need to buy. Now for rounding over, we have two choices here. We have a 3/8 round over bit, and we have a 1/2 inch round over bit. So being that's 3/4 material, I'm going to go with the bigger one, the 1/2 inch, and that'll give us a little bit more rounded edge. And you can see the swivel here on the end. That rides along the edge of the wood and keeps you at the same distance all the way. If you didn't have this little swivel, little bearing, it would cut into the wood different depths, and you wouldn't get a real nice straight line. So this follows right along that edge. So the only thing I got to make sure of is once we route one side and turn it over, that this wheel or bearing is still going to have something to ride on. If not, we'll have to go with the smaller round over bit. So we figured out our 3/8 bit is the one for the job, and it's a good thing I thought of that, because otherwise we would have had that issue where the bearing would not have anything to ride on the second pass. I don't know what I did. I don't know how I lost my wrenches to my router. They're little thin wrenches made for the router, but they're not in the box. I don't know why I would not have put them right back in that box, and I haven't seen them laying around the shop. So what you want to do with the base is you want to take the base of this down to where the edge of the router bit is right above the base. That would be too deep. It would leave a shoulder. So we want to go just below where that edge of that shoulder of that router bit is. So like right there, and we'll get a nice round over without leaving an edge. And then we can do it right here on the table, because this wheel does not contact the table. All right, here we go. Now doing this one-handed is not ideal. You can see probably here where we left a little shoulder because we were tipped one way or another. But we can sand that right off of there. A router table would be a lot easier, where it's a little table and there's a router sticking up through it, and then you can two-hand the wood through it. But I do not have a router table, so we're going to continue to do this one-handed. Maybe I'll clamp it down to the table saw so we can use 2 hands on the router. Now, as much as we tried to keep it from happening, when you're going a certain direction, it wants to like tear the grain. It's always easier to go in one direction than the other. But you can see we had a little tear out right here, but it's not very deep. I'll be able to get my 4.5-inch sander and knock that down, and it won't be rough like that. But you can see we've got a nice paddle made. So we're going to go around and hand sand this a little bit, and then we're going to drill a hole in the end of it to put a little loop into. All right, I think we got it. So now we're going to drill a little 1/4-inch hole to put the loop through that we want. Always make sure you got a backer piece of board on the bottom. That way it doesn't tear through once it goes all the way through the wood. And we're just going to eyeball the center. We're not building a clock. You know it's through when it wants to lift up on you. All right, there's our hole. So we're going to hand sand this up a little bit, and then we will be done. All right, we're done. Got it all hand sanded. We hit it with 180, then some 220. Everything's beautifully smooth. No little splinters anywhere. Now, if this thing gets left outside, the grain will start to open up and it'll get a little bit rougher. But all you got to do is hit it with some sandpaper again. We don't want to put any kind of finish on this because we're cooking with it, so it needs to be food grade. You could put some vegetable oil on it if you wanted to and let it soak in, but even if I did that, I would make sure to come with a rag later on. Make sure there's no oily residue at all on the wood, because otherwise it will draw dirt and get nasty. But I like just leaving them natural like this. Of course, this bottom end is going to get oil on it simply from being used in the cook pot. But let's go in and put a lanyard in the end of this. So we got our little leather shoestring here is basically what this is. So what you want to do is come on either side, and you're going to do just half of a square knot, but you're going to do it in 2 directions. So you're going to do one on this side, and then you're going to come over here and do one on this side. Like that. Pull it tight, both directions, like that. And then you pull it together, like that. That's called a water knot. Normally you do it in like nylon strap, but make sure both of those knots are nice and tight. You see how they kind of nest into each other? Then we're going to pull that nice and tight, and that'll never come loose. Then we have our little loop. That's all there is to that. So we are all done with our paddle. Kettle corn stirring paddle. A nice little project. It was fun. But it's almost time to leave. We're going to watch football tonight, and my cousin will be there. That's why we're taking this, so we can give it to her. So we hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you think about the new wireless microphone, if it gives you better audio quality or not. If not, we'll ditch it. But we're trying to give you better content and make for better videos, and we're very close to getting our drone. It is not too far down the road. So, hope you enjoyed this quick little project. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Let us, your friends know about our channel. If they want to know anything homestead, this is the one. We'll catch you later. See you on the next one.